I'll introduce Tom from Dale Drills. I think, Tom, you've been in manufacture of these things for a considerable time now, yeah?
Yeah, we started manufacturing seed drills in around 99, 2000. So coming up to 24, 25 years, yeah.
And in terms of the basic key features, the design, not much has changed, really?
No, we've been a Tine drill the whole time, still using the Tine. Developed it from a single arm with a ram below to a parallel linkage now that the Tine assemblies are attached to. So we've got good contour following and that kind of thing, and everything goes with a parallel linkage.
So I guess that's part of the key of this machine, is the fact that you can cope with quite undulating field conditions and still achieve a fairly consistent drilling depth.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, we've got the ability to contour follow with the parallel linkage, and the parallel linkage also lifts and lowers the machine out of work. Yeah.
So when you turn in, you just lift the units out and it goes round on the wheels, and then the actual down pressure you can apply, is that variable then from a soil type point of view?
Yeah, so we can run it in a number of different ways, but basically the hydraulic pressure is applied through a pressure relief valve on the front of the seed drill. So you can pump with the spool valve on the tractor constantly and increase and decrease that pressure, or run it on an accumulator to maintain the pressure.
So in that respect then, each opener's got the same pressure applied, so it can contour follow at that pressure, so you get consistent drilling depth.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. And from the point of view of the actual Tine itself, you've got 2 units here per module. Do you have variable spacing on those?
Yeah, so like you say, with 2 tines on each assembly. So each assembly is controlled by its own individual parallel linkage and a hydraulic ram within there. So each tine is set at a 5-inch row spacing as we're laid out here. So there's 2 tines spaced out to 5-inch rows. It's then 10 inches or 25 centimetres in new money to the next assembly, which is also spaced out at 5 inches or 12.5 centimetres. So a 6-metre drill like this would have 48 coulters at 12.5 centimetres. If we wanted to go to a more closer row spacing, we can take the spacers out and run the tines more or less one behind the other, and that puts us at a 10-inch or a 25 centimetre row spacing. So if we do that, we would do that if we've got a lot of trash, or if we wanted to put beams in quite deep. It enables the tractor pulling the drill to be a lower horsepower, lighter, because we've effectively taken half the teeth out of a comb and made it that bit easier to pull. It also means we could put fertiliser down the front knife if we wanted, seed down the rear, or multiple crop application if that's what we wanted to do as well.
So you've got a split hopper facility, so you could put seed and fert?
Absolutely, yeah. So with two hoppers there. There's a baffle up the middle. It does have a window in it with a blanking plate. So if we're seed only, you can put seed in both, take the blanking plate out, and the seed can get between the hoppers if one's got a bit more in than the other. And then equally, if we want to put fert in the front tank, baffle back in, blanking plate back in, and do it that way.
So you've got a fair amount of flexibility then. You could introduce a wider row spacing crop and seed and fert it, and the front tine could then create a little bit of tilt for the second one as well. Does that help sometimes?
Yeah, exactly right. And they're both tines, when you're at the close row spacing, the 10-inch row spacing, they're both bolted to either side of a 15mm plate, so they are separated slightly. So the front knife's going through, creating the channel, and then the rear knife goes through just slightly to one side of the channel, chipping the edge of it, generating a bit more tilth, and squeezing any seed or product that the first knife has applied into the edge of the groove as well. So they're both working together to generate a bit more of a seeding zone.
So this can be quite useful, I guess, if you've got soil that's a little bit nearer the edge of moisture. you can start to like double create that tilth, just work it twice slightly and create a bit more crumb.
Yeah, exactly. If we're drilling later in the season, later drilled crops for blackgrass control and that kind of thing, running at the 10-inch row spacing certainly does help. I suppose you disturb a bit less of the surface, so you're less likely to get blackgrass to grow from that point of view. But also where you've put the seed, you've like I say, generated that better zone of tilth.
And the fact that you've got quite narrow tines, is that quite important from a point of view of soil disturbance?
Yeah, we think so. We're a 12mm tine, so we're just doing as little amount of disturbance as possible to get that seed in the ground. Reducing it as much as we can.
So hence the benefit of having two relatively narrow bands rather than a broad band in that respect.
Yeah, that's right. So the basic drill as it comes would come with our standard leg, and like I say, a 12mm tine. If the farmer wanted to, there's options available to put a wing coulter on there if he wanted to band sow. If he wanted to sow we could do a 4-inch band every 10 inches, or a 100mm band every 250mm. There's options out there that we could sort of get sorted for him and put those on.
And do you find many farmers go down that route?
A few, yeah. It's not unheard of. We do a few options that way.
So potentially then you could have the rear banding and the fertiliser on the front?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And some of them do put a dual product wing coulter on, so it's fertiliser right down the middle, for example, and seed spread to either side. So there's various different options out there, and like you say, we've made the drill as versatile as we possibly can, so that you can do multiple different options with the same machine, 5-inch, 10-inch, different products. We've got our standard press wheel on this particular machine, but with different press wheel options as well, so you could change that if you wanted to.
Okay, so again, it's almost not bespoke, but you can tailor and fine-tune it to suit the specific requirements.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And a 6-metre drill like this, if you wanted to go from the 5-inch row to the 10-inch row, 2 men, it might take you 45 minutes to quickly whiz around it and adjust it from one to the other.
And the tines themselves are protected with tungsten or whatever to maintain the geometry and the depth?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's a boron steel with a tungsten tip. The front knife is also shear bolt protected because it's sort of slightly pushed in front of the rear knife. So we've got that on there as well.
Right. So overall then, although sometimes farmers would think a tine-based drill can be more susceptible to blockage, you've got a lot of flexibility to be able to widen that out to get residues through it.
Yeah, exactly right. And the worst times we probably experience is when we're trying to put rape in immediately behind a spring barley crop that's freshly chopped, and it's very fluffy and goes almost like cotton wool. And so we would tend to run the drill at a 10-inch row spacing for the rape anyway, and fert down the front and seed down the rear. So if at situations like that, we've got the ability to close it up if the farmer wanted to.
Okay, good. And control-wise, metering-wise, and control panel-wise, various different interfaces, I guess?
Yeah, so predominantly we run the RDS system. It's a good, reliable system, and the screen is very user-friendly. Everybody, I think, has used one at some stage of their farming career. So, yeah, it's a good system. Electric drives on the metering units, and it's a sat speed, so a little satellite that picks up the speed from the back from the GPS. So that's all very reliable and effective and works well. This current machine in front of us is using Accord metering units, so it's just a standard hopper Prairie fan, and we do offer bigger machines on a sealed tank, which is on an equaliser metering unit.
I see here you've got twin diffusers, so presumably half-width shut-off and whatever would be possible?
Yeah, it's definitely possible, yeah. It depends on the layout of the machine. We can do different things with the distribution head lids and that kind of thing, but this one's set up for seed and fert. So yeah.
So do you find as a farmer, if I come and discuss with you my drill, that you would very much talk around the various features and configure it according to what I want, rather than sell me a standard product?
Yeah, exactly. We get a feel from the farmer, understand what he actually wants to do and what he wants to drill and how he wants to drill it, and almost tailor the bog standard machine to the farmer's requirements. If he wants additional applicators, we can put an applicator on the front of the platform and run a fine seed product into the venturis there. So we could put a small seed in for cover crops or a startup fertilizer, that kind of thing. Equally, we could put an Avadex applicator or slug pellet applicator on the back of the machine and put splash plates on the following harrow and do that. So it all depends on what the farmer's ultimately trying to achieve, and we do our best to offer as many options as we possibly can for that.
Okay, and I guess it's important that you've got the farming experience within the company, within the family, to be able to draw on when it comes to talking farmers through where they are on the journey of going down to reduced till?
Yeah, that's right. James and I, my brother, we farmed together, and we farmed with Dad before that, so we've a fair amount of experience of our own on our own farm, and yeah, we can offer that little bit of extra advice if the farmer wants it. So yeah, I certainly think that helps.
So from your own farm's point of view, which one do you run then?
So we run a Tine very much similar to this. It's a standard layout basically, but we run it in the XL chassis. So we offer it in a small, medium, large and extra large, this one being the medium. The extra large is very similar to this. The hopper is stuck out in front because we need the space between the wings to fold the extra section in. So it's a 5-fold machine, yeah, and we run it at 12 metres wide. We pull it with a 6250 John Deere, much like this one. We dual it up, and it's on the limit. It's all it wants behind it really, but I'd rather have a smaller tractor working harder. That I can use that tractor to spread fertiliser, put on a hedger or corn cart as well. So the tractor becomes far more useful to me.
100%.
Yeah.
And optimum speed, is there a limit?
Yeah, 10k is really the maximum. We find using the smaller tractor, we often tend to find we're going more like 8k, and the difference in the job that you do by just going that little tiny bit slower is it's quite surprising. So yeah, 8 to 10k.
I think that's a standard with a Tine-based bit of kit. Any part of the world, there are limits to forward speed to achieve the right flow and the right effect on the soil, but you can at least determine what you want to do then, can't you?
Exactly, yeah. We like I say, we're just doing the bare minimum to get the seed in the ground. So that little bit of tilt we've created, by going too fast, we blast it all over, and then we've got to try and rake it back in with an aggressive following harrow. Whereas if we just go that little bit slower, it's there where we put the seed. The soil falls in back around it, and we're able to press it back in then.
I guess that becomes massively important with such as blackgrass in terms of trying to manage that soil disturbance.
Yeah, that's right. So soil disturbance obviously encourages the blackgrass to grow. The problem is we need to create a bit of disturbance to get the seed in the ground, and so it's a bit of a toss-up, but yeah.
There is a balance.
There is a balance, yeah. So it's disc versus tine, the whole thing, isn't it?
And from a seasonal point of view, like you've had drills out for many, many years now, so you've seen wet and dry seasons. This last one particularly was quite wet. How did they go generally?
Yeah, well, they do perform fairly well in the wet. We're only a little narrow tine. There's not a lot of steel in the ground. The press wheel being steel, it's quite easy to scrape a steel wheel with a steel scraper, and so although there's no flex in that wheel, a rubber wheel is a little bit more difficult to scrape. So the wheels do tend to keep turning, and the tines do flow fairly well through wet ground. The issue you get is you end up cutting a slot, and that's not what you'd want to achieve. This spring on our own farm, we used the drill in a number of different occasions in front of so we used it twice effectively, once without seed, just to try and open the top layer of soil up, get some air into the soil, just turn it over and try and get some drying done. And then 3 or 4 days later went through with the drill again with the seed in this time, and established the crop. And we just seem to have that top 2 inches had just gone sad, and I think a lot of people are experiencing a similar thing.
100%. I think to have that view that don't be prescriptive about it, be pragmatic. If you need to do something to maximise that seed to soil contact ultimately for yield, then do it.
Yeah.
And if the drill itself is capable of that, then that adds to the versatility, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So although it's a low disturbance machine, we were using it to disturb the ground to try and generate a bit of drying. So and it was quite effective. In other instances where we hadn't moved the soil in front of the drill, we then used the drill after drilling at a slight angle, almost like a straw rake, just to it was usually in a wet patch of a field or a damp headland or a wet corner, and we just pulled that area over on a slight angle just to pinch those slots if we generated them closed again. And that worked quite effectively. Yeah.
I think ultimately to have something growing in the soil that can then help to open it and structure it and stabilise it is better than not, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Within limits.
Yeah, if we hadn't done anything, that land would be getting worse and worse now. It needed the roots and something growing, and by going over it a second time, it improved it no end. So it almost, those areas, they look almost like a full crop now. So whereas if we hadn't done it, I think it would have been probably a 50% success rate.
And from the point of view of the field now, more consistent, and then hopefully come the autumn, that's going to give you an autumn sown crop that's consistent as well.
Yeah, get through with the low disturbance subsoiler and sort out any of these issue areas, and give ourselves the best possible chance, and then roll on harvest 25 basically.
Yeah. So do you find that as a total amount of kit you actually use then, this would obviously be the main prime mover? Have you got, you mentioned a low disturbance subsoiler or soil loosener, just to structure bits where necessary?
Yeah, so we make our own soil loosener, as you say, the Mia. It's the green tool on our stand. We've got a disc in front if we want it, low disturbance point and wing, spaced every 50 centimetres. So we're in a controlled traffic regime at home. So we're 9-metre combines, and we'll go with an 8-legged subsoiler, and we'll lift the middle 2 legs out. So with 3 up each wheeling, and we do all the combine wheelings and the 3 turning headlands that the combines have used to turn on with all the legs down. And that usually equates to about 33% of the field when we work it out. So that's the only deep work we do. We do rotationally mow about 1,000 acres of the farm every 5 or 6 years. So there's that as well. In those instances, the whole field gets subsoiling or flat lifting. We also have a Kelly harrow that we use to cultivate rape stubbles, just to mince them up a bit and destroy slug habitat. Although there's not much rape stubbles to do this back end, but yeah, that's another tool we like to use quite a bit. And then we have a set of guttler rolls as well that we use as effectively a Cambridge roller with I think it's the Guttler Magnum with the rake in front. So that's another tool. And then we have another set of rolls, a big set of Cousins rolls that we use to firm up after the drill.
So basically it's bits of kit that really complement this and add the final, either pre-preparation or final touch.
Exactly, yeah. And the Kelly this year, whether it's an effective tool, it just didn't have the penetrating ability in the spring. That top layer had gone too hard, so which was why we used the drill a bit more to rift it up and lift with that J-shaped tine. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good message really for farmers wanting to embark on a process of reduced till. Then it's a question of seeing where your soils are at the moment, working with them and taking them down that with you.
Yeah.
I guess people listening will realise the sort of soil types you're on if you're rotationally moulting and having to counteract sort of natural slumping from time to time.
Yeah, quite. And you've got to assess each year as it happens, haven't you? You can't just have a fixed regime in place. This is what we do, and it always works. You've got to adapt to the seasons and the year, and just do what you think's right at the time.
Yeah, and if you can continue to grow good yielding crops, it's supporting both the business bottom line and also the soil.
Exactly right. We're looking after soil as well as we possibly can. We do apply quite a lot of manures. We get manure from the neighbours. They've got a cattle unit, and then we put a lot of sewage cake on as well. So we use the drill to incorporate that whilst establishing a cover crop or something like that in August, and that works quite well. So just rolls enough soil over the muck to hide the majority of the smell.
Yeah. Again, yeah, an effective operation,
Yeah.
but the least that's necessary when you need to do it.
Yeah, and I would say at home we direct drill half the farm, and then we very min-till the other half, and that's probably where we aim to do the majority of the farm work that way.
And that's evolved over quite a few years now, so you've got into that regime which, if you did even less than that, probably would start to compromise, but if you don't need to do any more.
Exactly right, yeah, that's where we feel comfortable with in terms of expenditure, investing in the land with the cultivation and the return from the crop. So we could do a lot more, but not necessarily yield anymore and end up costing ourselves a lot of money. So yeah, that's about where we've got to with it.
Okay. Well, Tom, many thanks.
Thank you.
And yeah, best of luck with the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure to speak to you.